Money with Bob Brooks is sponsored by the Prudent Money Foundation on 91.3.
How is the luxury real estate market doing? Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. Good afternoon. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thanks so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Well, how well is the high-end luxury market selling in the DFW area? Today, real estate expert Caralee Gurney is here to give us an update. Caralee, welcome to Prudent Money.
Thank you. Glad to be here as always.
You know, I always want to start out and see what's going on with you out in the marketplace. Tough or interesting, we'll call it an interesting market. But what was interesting to me is our conversation today, because you said something to the effect of, you know, there's a buyer's market and there's a seller's market, but this is different. This is a different kind of mixture of things going on here.
So right now is what we would consider to be an equal market, which is great for both buyers and sellers. They can negotiate and get to where they want to be. That's beneficial to both sides. And the way we calculate that is based on the number of inventory homes that are on the market. So I know probably even 4 or 5 years ago, you looked at inventory and there was maybe 3 or 4 weeks, maybe a couple months max. And now we're looking at 6 months of inventory. And so 6 months marks an equal market.
So do people act as if it's an equal market, or do you have, is there a percentage, a larger percentage of people who say, well, yeah, you can call it whatever you want to call it, but this is the price we're trying to get for this house? So
that's an interesting question. And I think that people have been so spoiled over the past decade that they are still thinking, okay, I'm going to sell my house and I'm going to get this for it. But what we've seen in the market is that's not what's happening. So ideally, prices have come down, and you hope that sellers understand that. And I think they're starting to get a better grasp of that. They're starting to see the market shift a little bit. Housing prices come down a little bit. And so they're starting to realize, hey, I might not be able to get as much as I thought I could.
So when you say prices have shifted, how much do you, on average, do you think? I mean, I put you on the spot.
That is an on-the-spot question, but I would say, we've come down maybe 5% or so, 5 to 10%.
Right.
And it's interesting because a house I would have put on the market for, it's not even a luxury property. Let's just say I put a house on the market that was maybe going to go for $630 at the beginning of the summer. Last summer might go for $515.
$515. Well, that leads me to my next question. What is a good range of prices that you're seeing a lot of activity in versus a range of prices you're not seeing much activity at all?
For me, it's actually not the price. It's the neighborhood. So depending on where you're looking what the market is, if you've got a neighborhood that nobody ever moves out of, but everybody wants to live in it, and a house comes up for sale, it's going to go pretty fast. So, Willow Bend and Plano would be an example of that, or Highland Park in Dallas. Those are neighborhoods that people want to be in, and they're waiting to be there. So in those types of neighborhoods, you're going to see them move fast. In other neighborhoods that are not that caliber, or not, they've got people moving in and out all the time, you're not going to see those move as fast.
So what, as far as, do you see that settling down a little bit? I mean, especially in some of the prices of these homes to get into these neighborhoods.
I think it's helping for sure. And I think if we really lower the interest rates mid-September, like they're talking about doing, I think you'll see a little bit more activity, a little bit more movement than what we've been seeing.
This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Caralee Gurney is with me today to talk a little bit about what's going on in the real estate markets. And we're focusing in on a type of real estate that we've never really covered, and it's high-end luxury properties. Now, what was interesting, I got a little bit of an education on this, is that there's a couple of ways to define this, right?
Correct.
We were talking about this earlier today. So talk a little bit about the entry price, the maybe we'll call it, say, 2 levels of luxury type homes.
Correct. And this really is interesting because it also depends on the market that you live in. So, a Dallas property might be starting at $1 million, $1.1 million, whereas, Collin County or Plano, Frisco might start around $850, and it's based on the numbers in those areas. So your higher priced homes are going to be in Dallas when you start getting up higher. So it depends on what market you're looking at, but I'd say between $850 and $1 million is going to be your starting, and that's a pretty normal home. It's not actually that over the top, but when you get up to about the $2 million mark plus, you're going to start seeing a lot more high end things in the home, upgrades. Things that you don't normally see in your typical neighborhood home. And the other thing that really quantifies a true luxury property is that it's a custom build and not your day-to-day builder.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if you've watched some of these reality real estate shows. Have you?
I watched some of them, yes.
I didn't ask you to comment on it, but what's interesting to me is that where those price levels start.
Yes.
Like in California, a condo for $2.5 to $3 million.
Right, and it's so interesting because depending on where you are, and I think we talked about this yesterday, but depending on where you are, that mark might be nothing in California. I mean,
right.
$1 million home in California is probably a $300,000 home here.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy.
High dollar home in this area might be 27 to 30 million, whereas in Miami, that's not that much.
So talk a little bit about how is the market for your high-end luxury homes in Dallas? I mean, obviously it's a totally different process, I'm sure.
It is a different process. I still think it's really good, and part of the reason I think it's really good is the type of person who can purchase a luxury home. A lot of them are cash buyers, and so a lot of the noise that goes on in the market around interest rates and things like that doesn't really pertain to them so much. So they can afford more, which really just makes it a different playing field than your average home.
And you're probably looking at maybe second homes.
A lot of times second homes, or they already have a second home and they want to upgrade their current home. Maybe they want a better view. Maybe they want more space.
So they got kind of maybe an advantage, and this kind of cuts both ways, is they've got the patience to wait. Right, they're not in a most people selling those types of homes don't seem to be in a hurry.
Correct. They're like, we could do something else. We'd like to do something else, but until that perfect comes along, we're fine. We're fine. We can sit on the market.
So, as far as a real estate agent goes, what would someone who's got a home, owns a home like that, wants to put it on, wants to list it, what are they looking for? Because you're not going to give someone that walks in with inexperience. I mean, they're gonna I would assume a listing appointment. They're gonna pretty much grill you and about answers to questions that they need to give this listing to somebody.
So experience is very important, and especially experience in the luxury market. It is different. It's a different ballgame. You do so much more. It's not that you don't give attention to other properties, but you elevate what you do with a luxury property. So you're going to have a lot more video. You probably use a drone, some aerial photos, and then also just your marketing in general is spread a lot further than you would just your normal build.
So when you're looking at these high-end luxury properties, what are some of the features maybe that distinguish one property from another?
So, here's an example. I've got a listing coming up in the Coppell area, and it has a 9-car garage.
Okay.
So you've got one garage that holds 6 and the other that holds 3. So that right there in itself is its own beast, right?
That is their own apartment.
Exactly. So there's just special things. In that particular home, it actually has a window into their 6-car garage. So if you're sitting in the hot tub, you can look at your pretty cars in the garage.
Well, of course, that's definitely something that's needed. So you're talking unique unique type setups you just don't see with other homes. And
Exactly.
maybe the part of the deal that really brings people in.
Yes, I mean, it's the little things too. I know I was in a home the other day and they had a TV that went up and down on the wall, like way different. It was electronic, way different than just your normal arm where you pull it out, and pull it around.
Right.
Had a little electronic button and it could go all the way up so you could see it better, or it could come down so depending on where you're sitting. I mean, just little things that you don't see every day.
Is it likely that someone who's owns a home like that, they're putting it on the market, will put a good bit of money into it, or are they kind of more from the standpoint of we're going to sell it as it is because I got more important things to do?
Well, I don't know about other agents, but I have some pretty good sellers, and we work together to see what is going to make the house sell. What's going to make it go for the most money that you can possibly get. And I love it that they listen to me, because I feel like, I do have the experience, and I'm going to work with them to get the best outcome we can. And when we work together as a team, it works great. And usually we pick the things that are going to make the biggest bang for their buck.
I will say this, of knowing you for a long time, actually back to elementary, right?
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, because we're not even that old.
I know.
But
it's just 10 years ago.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I was telling Shirley this. I said, I miss being young.
I know, me too. Although there are things I like about now too.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. So, what about staging one of these properties? I mean, that makes, especially when you walk into a house that size. I mean, you probably you can't imagine what it looks like with furniture.
Right, and some people don't have a vision, and that staging is really important so that they can see how things will look good in the home. Other people want to see their stuff in the home, so it's easier for them to walk in and not see all of that. But personally, I think it's best to stage it, and I'll start with, if they have things there, I'll start with what they have and work from there. If what they have is not going to be right, maybe it's dated and doesn't make the home shine as much as it could, or we've done some updates and now it doesn't really match, then we'll bring in a stager, and I usually provide that stager up to a certain dollar amount that will come in and do the important rooms in the house, and it really does make a difference.
Do you often see people sell their furniture?
That is a big thing in the luxury market.
Are you starting to see more of that?
I do see that. They're like, we don't want anything. It all fits perfect. We're happy to leave it for an additional cost of what they determine that to be. And I see that a lot.
And isn't there a way to do that that's a little bit cheaper on the final end? I don't know. I'm probably not saying that right.
I'm not sure exactly what you're asking, but I do know that, it probably is cheaper than going out and buying all new furniture. And usually, we'll promote it as, if furniture is desired, that will be negotiated and go from there.
Talk a little bit about security issues, because, the success that someone's had and the security with their home, and that could be a big deal.
Yeah, especially depending on who the seller is. Sometimes they don't want people to know who they are.
Right. Sometimes
they don't want you to know they have a panic room. That's something that you tell, whoever the buyer is at a later point, and they just get that bonus. Or, private bookshelf rooms, things that you might not know unless someone told you. And so some of those things are private. And then a lot of times when the sale occurs, and I've found this interesting, maybe you as the buyer is thinking, I'd like to go over there and meet Mr. Seller so I can learn about the sprinkler system and learn about all this automation that's in the home and learn about the equipment, the audio equipment. They don't want you to do that. And I have started seeing this more and more and more, that, they don't want to interact with the buyers,
right?
Which is interesting.
Yeah, I could see that.
I think they don't want their phone ringing a lot after,
right.
after they sell.
So what steps do you take to fully qualify somebody? Because this isn't, for instance, this isn't California where we're used to a $3 or $4 million listing, and Joe Smith, hey, great to meet you. Glad you want to come see the house. Bring them in. They're happy to see any buyers at all. But I'm sure there's some protocol though there.
There is. There are, especially on the higher end homes. I'd say once you get 3 or 4 million, they're going to definitely want to make sure before you come to the house that you, as a listing agent, see proof of funds. A lot of them don't want them in their home unless they are already. They know that they can afford the house, because there are a lot of looky-loos out there, and they don't want that.
Where did the phrase looky-loos?
Looky-loos.
I mean, I heard this. I watched a lot of reality TV, but I use that phrase.
Yeah. Well, there's some people just curious.
Yeah.
And, go to an open house if you're curious. But to kick somebody out of their home just so you can go look at the house and you're not really interested, it's not a very nice thing to do.
So let's go back to something you were talking about. I meant to say this is that what's interesting, like I said, I've known you for a long time, is that you still go through some of the same processes that you go for, we'll say, normal real estate listings to the high end. You still put that kind of care into
absolutely
into the process.
I think every seller, no matter what the price of the home is, deserves to be treated
right.
kindly and fairly and similarly. The only difference for me is the extra step in what I do marketing wise, just because on a global luxury property, we have the ability to promote those all over the world to a lot of different brokers, which is actually different than some brokerages that only promote within their own brokerage. So there's some benefit to that. And if you meet that criteria, then we have the ability to do that. And it's nice.
So talk a little bit about that. That's got to be somewhat of a challenge, and you can't just put a cookie cutter design together or a process, and say we're going to do this to sell this house. I mean, how do you put together a marketing plan to reach people all over the country?
Well, fortunately for me, I have that ability through our parent company, Coldwell Banker. So if we have a property that meets a certain criteria, it's automatically done. So it goes everywhere, which is so nice. And then just in general, even if it's not a luxury property, it automatically is boosted out to all the realtor sites. So there's over 300 of those. So we definitely have a knowledgeable base of people that are seeing the listings.
So one of the things we talked about a few minutes ago, too, I wanted to come back to was what kind of prep work do you do to the house before you list it? What kind of renovations or maybe upgrades that are cost effective that you suggest to implement into the home?
Well, honestly, a coat of paint can make all the difference.
Right.
A lot of homes still have that kind of dark look, and if you can brighten it and open up all the windows and not the windows, but the window shades, then you're already a step closer to someone feeling comfortable when they walk in your home. I mean, if you've got something that's light and bright with lots of natural light, they're going to feel more comfortable. In the dark heavies, a lot of times you just feel kind of dark and,
right.
Just not as in a good mood. So we want to brighten them up and make them feel comfortable when they walk in. So that's a simple thing that you can do. And then if the rest of the house is outdated, like maybe it's the cabinetry or maybe it's the granite, we just pick and choose what things will make the most bang for your buck. And usually it's your master bath and your kitchen.
Yeah, I got to think that anywhere from a 12 to 15,000 square foot home, that if part of it's out of date, it's probably all out of date. I mean, what an enormous amount of money it would cost to bring it up to today's standards.
For sure. And I'll never forget when we redid our house that we lived in at one point. I redid the master bath and bedroom, and I didn't want to leave my bedroom because when I walked out, I'm like, it doesn't look like the rest of the house. So we ended up doing the rest of the house. But it's the same thing. The master bath and the kitchen are the most important, but you're right. If you do some of it, you kind of end up doing a little bit of all of it.
So let's talk a little bit about pricing, because that can be, I would assume, can be a challenge in these types of sales where there's a disagreement in worth, and you can put all the numbers out there all day long, but the person you're working with is very stubbornly set on, this is the number I want. How do you deal with that? Because you're looking at it going, I know for a fact that it's going to really be tough to get that number.
Yeah, well, I can tell you I had this exact scenario just this last year in Fort Worth. I had run numbers for a client and suggested a price, and she wanted to do it close to 300,000 over what I had suggested. And I said, well, the numbers don't lie. This is what I think would work. And my seller wanted to try the other number. So we did. And for several months, we actually had several offers. And all the offers were very close to what I had suggested as the house had. And the answer kept being, nope, I want this number. Well, what I do as a listing agent is every week on Mondays, I try to give them a report. Okay, here's what's going on in the market. Here's the trends. The market's coming down. Prices are coming down. There's more inventory. So you see this trend week over week, which is exactly what happened with this particular client. And finally I said, we've had it on the market a long time. Let's take it off 30 days, and then let's put it back on at the price I mentioned to you originally. And guess what? We sold it the first weekend.
Wow, that's awesome.
So
what's the magic about 30 days? I mean, you hear that, take it off the market, because people don't really.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. When you take it off for 30 days, it comes back on as a day one listing. When it comes back on as a day one listing, you've got different people that were looking at it between then and 6 months ago, right? You've got new buyers in the pool. And so a lot of them don't even notice. As a listing agent or as a buyer's agent, I always look up history, but not all agents do that. I think it's really important to do it because you see, okay, it was on the market at this price. It sat for such amount of time, and now it's the right price. So it's a good time to buy. But not everybody looks at that. So on the chance, you might get somebody brand new in.
This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Real estate expert Caralee Gurney is here today to talk a little bit about high-end luxury properties. And, of course, there's quite a bit of that in Dallas and in different parts of Dallas. If you want more information on Caralee,
the Mariposa Group, DFW.com, TheMariposa DFW, as in Dallas-Fort Worth.com.
That is so incredibly lazy of me to do that to you, but since you and I do go way back, I feel like I can do that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk. And there may not be, but I want to ask anyway. Are there seasonal trends specific for the luxury home market that could impact the sale?
I think if you're looking for a second home, yes. If you're looking for a beach house or something like that, you're going to want to try to hit the market so you can enjoy it during the season that you would enjoy it, right?
Right.
Otherwise, it's really just when you need it and when it comes available. When you've got someone, I've had a client looking for years, and they're looking for something very specific in a very specific neighborhood, and I don't think they care what time of year they find that. If they find it, they're happy.
Now, how much social media do you use on the luxury, high-end luxury, or none?
I use social media on everything.
Right.
And I think it's so important, the videos, the attention to detail, the things that we're doing, and trying to spruce it up and make it fun as well. It's just so important because 92% of buyers are shopping online, and you have to work in tandem and partnership with them in order to find them the right thing.
So let's talk a little bit about you've got the offer, and you got to present the offer. How do you get the buyer and the seller in this case? I mean, how do you get them close enough together to make the deal happen? Because this, once again, we're talking about a lot of money. Right,
and this can be tricky. And sometimes you have to work with the other agent to find things that are a win for their buyer. And sometimes I as a listing agent, have to find something that's a win for my seller. So what's important and where can you meet in the middle where everybody wins in the end? And I really think that's the best approach.
Yeah, it certainly it's got to be a process, I'm sure. Once again, Caralee, your website.
The Mariposa Group, DFW.com, TheMariposa Group, DFW.com, or 214-364-8677 is my direct number.
This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. If you got a question for me, you can always go to the website at prudentmoney.com and send it in, and I'll get you taken care of. And we do actually podcast each program So we get that. Typically, we put that out there about 10, 15 minutes after each show. So if you want to go online and listen to the program because you didn't have time to listen to it in real time, it's all there at prudentmoney.com. If you got a question for me, please go to the website, prudentmoney.com, and send it in because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time. Keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.